Stephen, welcome to the Retail Horror Podcast.
Thank you. I love the name of your podcast.
Thank you for appreciating it. It's either a love-hate thing. I really appreciate you being.
I love it because I got to add it to my calendar and I don't really get to use the word at work.
I know it's, a lot of people do take offense with it. And I keep trying to tell people it's really directed at me because I have done every single job in the retail industry, which makes me kind of a So,
yeah.
But it's always funny to hear people say it back to me. It's like, it's kind of cringy.
It sounds like we both came up through the retail ranks. My first job was actually stocking Target shelves after the store closed. And you'll know this term, zoning.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wow. That is an old school retail.
Old school retail. So that was high school actually. And climbing the shelves like some kind of a monkey to get the boxes down to refill and the back of the warehouse. And yeah, good experience.
Overnights are brutal. We have to do that. I was just talking to you about Bristol Farms is one of our biggest accounts, and we do all 14 of their locations, holiday decor. And it's not like a couple things. It's garland on every single end cap, garland that goes to the store.
Right.
We have to do it overnights because we're on scaffolding, and it is the hard, I'm 59, and to try and ramp your head up and get around okay, we're going to eat dinner and try and take a nap, and then we're going to get up and go to work at midnight. And it is brutal.
It's brutal. It is. But it has to get done, right? Because when else are you going to do it?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to when I'm sitting at home scheduling it and a bunch of young people are doing it as opposed to all of us. So please introduce yourself to everyone and tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your brand.
Sure. My name is Steve Henke, and I'm the Chief of Brand Marketing for DAP Health, which is a federally qualified healthcare center that provides healthcare services to marginalized community members. And by marginalized, what our patients have in common, that's 88,000 of them, is most of them are living in poverty and have some barrier to getting the healthcare they need, whether that's transportation or income, or it could be a language barrier. And so what DAP Health does is it does the in-depth work of trying to identify those barriers and then remove them. And most of what the organization learned during the AIDS crisis. It was born of the AIDS crisis now 41 years ago. And part of funding that response was starting a resale store called Revivals, which at first was really just one room out of the back of its office when the organization was then on Vela Road in Palm Springs and was serving less than 1,000 individuals. And so to go from that till today, serving 88,000 individuals, now a really diverse cross-section of the community, including moms and migrant farm workers and people seeking gender-affirming care, and still trying to work to end the HIV crisis and to provide specialized care to people living with and, more importantly, aging with HIV. That work continues. It's just become a lot more diverse. The people we've served have become a lot more diverse. And what I love is that Revival Stores continues to do the work to fund that care, but also is kind of a gateway drug, if you will, to DAP Health, because we have more than 40,000 people that come through our stores every single month. And many of them have never heard of DAP Health. Many of them need access to healthcare. And so, that sometimes is the first time they hear about the organization. They're just out shopping like you and I, right? They just love the thrill of the hunt and the thrill of the save. And then they stumble upon access to healthcare that will change their lives.
There are 4 Revival stores now, and they're all in the Palm Desert area. So I'm assuming that's the majority of the people that you serve are from that, or does it go out further beyond that?
Right. So there's 4 stores, Palm Springs, Cathedral City, Palm Desert, and Indio, all along what we call the 111 corridor. It cuts right through the Coachella Valley. And for people who are listening that might not know, the Coachella Valley is actually a system of 9 different cities that if you look at it left to right and top to bottom, it's the size of the state of Massachusetts. And it's about 450,000 people, half of whom are what we call snowbirds. So they go somewhere else during the summer and then they come back. They come back during the nice spring and winter months to enjoy the Palm Springs vibe.
It is so beautiful there. I was just telling you off camera that I was out there last week for working for a few people and restopped in your store. And I had been there earlier in the year during the holidays when we were decorating. And I had a job that was in 3 different showrooms, Atlanta, Dallas, and Las Vegas. And one of the things we needed were these silver trays. And I went in and we didn't have many at that point. And you start getting we were leaving for Atlanta like the next week, and you start getting a little panicky on trying to find found objects like that because they're so specific. And it's not like I'm in Oregon now. I moved from Southern California to Oregon a year ago, and there are thrift stores here, but they're not your normal thrift stores. They're they're a lot of books, a lot of bikes, and So I went in there and there was one big, you had a 3-tier table, and it was literally all silver trays. And I looked like a crazy person because the line was stretched out down through the store. And I'm standing in this 4-way and I'm picking up all these trays and stacking them up and I'm carrying them around. And people in line are looking at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, don't mind me. And, it's funny to go up through that process. And anytime you buy things like that, people look at you like crazy. But I didn't have a chance to go through the apparel. And I was saying, your community where you're at, it's like the donations you get are so good. You showed me a couple pieces of your art and said the community really, really helps support you, which is great because it's all based on donations.
It is. It is. I mean, we are the only resale store in America that has its own brand of new furniture, lighting, and decorative accessories as well, called Mode. Which we're really proud of. That sort of came forward because we were looking at it, there's different modes of design, there's different modes of decor. And we thought, well, here's a new mode of philanthropy, right? You could shop for brand new furniture and still 100% of the profits will go back and fund DAP Health. And that's where that was born from. So yeah, our stores are, majority pre-loved. We like to say, re-love the pre-loved.
I love that.
But we also then blend in because that's how real people shop, right? Like nobody shops exclusively at a resale store or exclusively at a new furniture store, right? You make choices about, I'm going to invest maybe a little bit more in this case good or a little bit more in this mattress because I want to sleep well. But then I'm going to save money by buying the headboard at a resale store. I'll just paint it a different color or, maybe I'll buy this accent chair. And it really, it depends. It depends on your life, but we did a survey. It was interesting. We did a survey a number of years ago, and what we learned is that our shoppers have kind of one thing in common, and that is most of them are not coming in looking for a specific item. So it's not like I go to the grocery store, I go to a furniture store, and I'm looking for one specific thing. They're really coming because they want to find themselves. And so years ago, our tagline was find yourself at revivals because, that is what people do when they come into our stores. They see something that expresses, a trait or something they want other people to think or feel about them or know about them, whether it's their taste level or their commitment to sustainability and keeping things out of a landfill, or their DIY sensibility, or maybe it's just a bounce of nostalgia, right? They see something that just gives them a boost of a memory that makes them smile. And then that becomes part of the story they tell in their homes. And so I always love standing in the middle of our store and just watching people because you can see the visceral reaction on their faces when they find that thing that they're looking for, but it's them.
It's always like you said, the thrill of the hunt. It's
the thrill of the hunt. Yeah, it's the thrill of the hunt. But I think that I think people who shop resale more than say the big box stores, I always think that our shoppers are what I call not consumers but prosumers. They know the story. They know the quality. If they're shopping the racks of clothing, they sort of know what fabrics they're looking for, what labels, there's a certain something, but they know a lot. They know a lot about where things were made and what the history is and, whether or not it's original or it's an interpretation, because we go through cycles in this country of bringing things back. But they know, right? I don't always know, but they know. If you ask them the story, they can tell you a lot about what they're holding.
I have so much I want to ask you now, just based on that little group that you just talked about. One is, how did your retail background start? You mentioned Target, so talk to us a little bit about how you started, and then bring us up to date to your career now with DAP.
Sure. So, I mean, I started like a lot of folks working retail as a part-time job, first-time job. I filled back when I moved, after college, I moved to Minneapolis and I did a lot of jobs. One of them was working at Dayton Hudson in the holiday department, covered in glitter. And, anybody who's done that knows it's a special, experience. And I did a lot of those kind of jobs. And then I landed at Target corporate, back in the early 90s, and kind of made my way up through the ranks and ended up really focusing on product development and trend forecasting. And so I spent a lot of years just traveling all over Europe looking for new ideas and looking for what the trends were going to be. And then working with our design team to interpret those into collections of product, and then finding the right factories overseas and all sorts of countries, and going over and producing furniture and decorative accessories. And
that was a dream job.
It was a dream job. It was absolutely a dream job, for the first 10 years. And then I wanted to really just, I wanted to have a dog and I wanted to volunteer. I didn't want to live on planes, trains, and automobiles anymore. But it was a dream job and I loved it and I loved everyone I met. So that's kind of my background for retail. And then when I moved to Palm Springs, I really never thought I'd use it again, because I basically moved to Palm Springs and pivoted towards marketing and communications for the local newspaper, and then got recruited to then Desert AIDS Project and started working on the revival side of the business as well. But really from a marketing and communications point of view. But, retail, right? They'll take anybody with two hands to come in and work on special projects. So we've been able to do some really special activations inside the store. We've done everything from pop up a Dan Foley store inside our store. He's a local designer with a national footprint, and he had his own collection of product, to launching something we call Revivals After Dark, which is we gather all of the, let's say, adult themed merchandise that we get donated that might not be appropriate to put out on our main sales floor.
I so want you to elaborate on that.
I'll be happy to. And we do an event twice a year that generates an enormous amount of dollars for DAP Health. But more than that, it brings the community together for a really special experience that is fun and filled with laughter and community connection. We have men lined up around 2 p.m. for something that doesn't start until 6 p.m.
Wow, how fun. So tell us, Pete,
really
explain what the event kind of looks like and feels like.
Sure. So what we do is as I said, we gather, we're always just gathering all the donations. And then what we do is we assort, we moved it into our back alley. So it's Revivals After Dark back alley event. And we set up little departments. We have a department of, adult and erotic art of all types. We have a magazine and video, department that we call Porn Again. We have toys, we have apparel, we have lots and lots of leather gear. We've added swimsuits and underwear and jock straps because the community asked for them. T-shirts that are a little bit more conversational, but not a conversation you might want to have, let's say, at Sunday church. And we bring in a DJ, and it's 90 minutes, and the community lines up for hours and hours in advance. And I always love to position myself right at the fixture that has all of the harnesses on it, because I don't know if you remember those old movies where ladies might fight over dresses in the basement of Filene's and they're up in the air. Well, we could have 100 to 200 harnesses on this fixture, and it will take no more than 1 minute for it to be emptied.
Amazing.
And it's amazing. And we do, it's 90 minutes, never more than that. And we generate around $30,000 in pre-loved adult, product. And we donate a portion of it to the local Palm Springs Leather Order of the Desert because they are a service organization that then redistributes that money to community organizations near and dear to their heart. And it brings in, as I said, it just brings in folks who may not have heard of DAP Health, may not know that they're welcome at DAP Health to get health care. And especially the leather community who is faced with a lot of stigma because of, their lifestyle. And, so we built so many beautiful relationships. I get tagged and pinged all over social media if we're even 1 week late announcing the next sale. But it's retail the way retail used to be. I mean, when was the last time we saw anybody line up for a sale 4 hours in advance, right?
I was going to say that, and
Friday.
Having it, I'm guessing having it in only 90 minutes is somewhat strategic to create that scarcity mindset.
Yeah, right, exactly. We want it to be a happening. We want it to be fun, and we didn't know it was going to become an annualized event, or now biannual event, but it's become that popular, and we will welcome, well more than 1,000 individuals in those 90 minutes going through our lanes buying something.
And I have to ask, because obviously it's all run by volunteers, and I was there, and there was a lot of elderly ladies that were the cutest thing, were working the registers. And now when you're explaining all this merchandise, all I could think about was these little ladies sifting through merchandise
they fight. Our volunteers, it's the one event that they fight to work at. We have ladies and gentlemen, but many ladies from our other stores in more conservative parts of the valley that just insist on volunteering that night because it is filled with so much joy. Because it has so much joy. And it's really something that can't truly be described. I mean, it's one of my favorite events of the entire year.
Oh my gosh. So now you've been with the brand, with DAP for how long?
8 years.
And how long ago did you decide to bring in the furniture mode, correct?
Oh, we've been doing mode. When I was working for the local newspaper, this was my account. And so we developed the mode brand now, I believe it was like 11 years ago. And it's just been, it's grown and grown, to be, first furniture, but now it's furniture, it's indoor rugs, outdoor rugs, decorative accessories, lighting. It's the whole spectrum of home furnishings. And it's wonderful because it's really affordable because of our business model. It's much more affordable than other furniture stores. It's great quality. And, it's styles that will mix beautifully with pre-loved merchandise. So it's fun because you can see people maybe drag an accent chair from the pre-loved department into the new furniture department and put it next to that sofa that they're thinking about buying and seeing if it's a look that will work in their home.
Is it a lot of mid-century, I'm guessing?
It's some, it's a lot of what I call, you and I would probably call transitional. Mm-hmm. So, or soft modern. It's, very clean lines, very, we don't do a lot of ornate. We don't do a lot of, anything over the top, but we like to do lots of transitional pieces because the desert lifestyle is kind of easy breezy. You want it to be kind of flowing through. We do a lot of sectionals because this is a community that loves to entertain. And then we do a lot of really interesting swivel pieces. Ooh. And again, I think it's because people have parties, and they want to be able to host, sit on a chair and talk to one group and swivel over and talk to another and, just have fun in their homes.
I'm guessing with your background in product development, that's kind of how that came to be. So how do you tackle that? Did you decide we're going to roll out one or two pieces and then based on the success, continue to keep adding to those collections? Yeah,
it's been led by our director of retail, Dane Koch, and he's really sort of shepherded that through. It's been trial and error, to be honest. I mean, it's been old school retail where you bring something in or you bring a collection or you bring a price point in and you really see what your customer is willing to invest. And what we found is we have very different customers at each of our stores. And so you're going to find the biggest collection with some of the most varied price points in Palm Springs, because we have everyone from Hollywood set designers to interior designers to realtors looking to stage a home to folks like you and me who might just need to fill a space or, redecorate our home office. But a lot of the people that come in can afford something just a little bit grander, right? A little bit bigger. That's not true in our Indio store where people are more price sensitive. So we'll do very few pieces in that store, for example. And, art sells really, really well all day long in Palm Springs, and it doesn't in our other stores.
Interesting. What are price points?
Yeah, so it's just been trial and error. It's old school retail. You listen to your customer and what they want. You kind of look at your numbers and then you tweak the collection from there.
For the store is completely run on volunteer, or not completely. It sounds like majority is volunteers.
Now, we have 4 volunteers for every paid employee in our store.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So when it comes to staffing the store and whatnot, I'm assuming it runs much like a regular retail store where you're cashiering, you're the MOD, you're doing merchant. Do you have in-house merchandisers, and what does it look like when they're laying the store out and setting it up?
Yeah. So each store has its own personality, and that's because of our volunteers. And what's really fascinating to me from a retail perspective is, having a great volunteer oversee a category will make or break that category. We had a woman at our Palm Springs store. Her name was Carol, and she not only was obsessed with researching the pieces and putting little notes on them with their story of their history, but also pricing them correctly. But she would also we get a lot of things that are maybe not perfect donated. And she will break those pieces apart and then make new custom jewelry. And so we had a whole collection by Carol in our Palm Springs store. And that store, Palm Springs store, was for years the number one generator by tens of thousands of dollars in jewelry because of one volunteer. Carol moved to our Palm Desert store, and guess what? That store now has the number one jewelry department in all of our stores. And that's true for a lot of our departments. We have people who just do books or just do apparel. And if they do jewelry or they do apparel, they also merchandise it. They take such pride in dressing the mannequins or filling the cases or assorting the books, right? And so our volunteers really are the secret sauce, if you will, because that's what makes each of our stores different. The vibe is slightly different in each of our stores. The stores are the same. They're all well lit. They're all clean. They're all well merchandised. They're all priced for easy shopping, right? So like our brand elements are all there, but the feeling of the store and the flavor of the store is slightly different. And that's because of the volunteers who are absolutely the lifeblood of the organization. And they're the reason why folks love to come, because they get to know our shoppers' names and they can tell stories. And fascinating, if you just ask the volunteers, you're going to find a lot of them are previous retail executives from major retailers or of fashion or merchandising in their background. And this is how they give back. They hone their skills at Barney's or Bendel's or wherever they worked. And now they live in the desert and they're retired and they still love retail, right? Like the name of your podcast, once a retail whore, always a retail whore. And they still want to use that talent. And so generously, they lend their time and talent at revivals, and they really elevate each of our stores in a very personal way.
I love that. We had a guest on. It's a family-run nursery in, I believe, Scottsdale, and he said their volunteers were somewhat the similar saying as the secret sauce is that they're retired. They don't want a full-time job. They want to come in. They want to make a difference. They know how business should be run. They understand. They have that enthusiasm. They have that commitment. And they do their thing and then they go home. And, I was saying it's when you think about retail in general and how hard it is to get quality people and keep them. Yep. You think about something like this where it's like, come in, volunteer, do your thing. And you get the best of the best who want to just be because they want to be there. And I think that it's like, I have to think that a lot of their traits and how they conduct themselves and how passionate they are has to run off like on some of the paid employees that, may or may not be as lively as the volunteers, that I have to figure it has to rub off on them.
Yeah. When I walk the stores or I'm in the back rooms in the warehouses, I view all of it as it's our volunteer stores. It's their stores. And, so I'm really mindful to ask for permission if I can touch something or move something, because I want to grab something for a photo shoot. But I will always check in and find out who the lead volunteer is for that item if it's in a back room. And I will always ask for permission first. That is, I'm really mindful that it is, again, it's their passion that's driving the business and making Revivals the space that customers want to come into so that we can raise money to provide comprehensive healthcare at DAP Health.
What's the average age of the volunteers, or is it a range?
It's a range. I would say our volunteers range from 40s all the way up. We had a volunteer retire at 101.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In our Palm Desert store, and she wanted to be there. She just wanted to be there. And it was hard saying goodbye to her because she had been there for so long and she was so passionate about it. But there's a place for everyone. And I think that's the great thing. We have a volunteer coordinator team. They will find a space for a volunteer regardless of their ability or mobility. They will find something for them to do. If they want to give back, there's a home.
This is what I anticipate I'm going to be doing in my old age, just like volunteer. Because retail is something, if you've been in retail, I've been in retail for 40 something years, and it's like something you eat, sleep, and drink, and it's very hard to just like turn it off. Yep. I have to wonder also with the volunteers is that I have to figure it keeps them, for the older ones, keeps them younger. And it's like, I wonder for the 101-year-old, how long she lasted after she left, because it seems like every morning that gives them a purpose to get up and go do something and be important and be, involved in something. And then you take that away, and they talk a lot about how people, when they retire and don't have a purpose anymore, and how often they decline.
Yeah. I think the stores are as much a community center as a retail environment, to be honest. And I do, to your point, human connections, that thing in retirement, which will make or break you, right? That is the thing, they say, is your ability to connect with other people as you get older, because your circles get smaller and smaller and smaller. But when you're in a store, as you know, like endless opportunities to connect with new people, old people, friends that are coming in, it's just a stream of human connection.
The stores are very big. It's one of these things that a lot of, I haven't had a chance to talk to a lot of people about it on the podcast, but it's always kind of there, which is loss prevention, and how in a store that big, the one thing is I did notice is that it's all kind of low level. So you can kind of look across and see the whole entire store. How do you deal with loss prevention in a store that size? And when you're dealing with a lot of people are in there.
Yeah, it's a challenge for all retailers, obviously. We do have a lot of items stolen from the store. What we try to do is we do signage that just says, shoplifting steals someone else's healthcare, right? We try to just educate people that if they're making the choice to steal, it's from us, but really it's from the person that's getting healthcare at DAP Health. Because that's the reason we exist. We do have, 2 of our stores now have security at the front door, just to welcome folks and make sure they know that somebody's there. And that helps a little bit. But yeah, loss prevention, it's something I think every retailer struggles with all the time. And, I'm always surprised at how and what people take. Somebody was telling me, we just had these gorgeous, we brought in these very, very beautiful, large, they were 24-inch square tossed pillows, and they were designer pillows, and I think they were priced at $75 each, which for Revivals is a higher price point. And they were stolen. Or that's what I was told. They were stolen. And I said, well, what do you mean they were stolen? I mean, who can walk out of the store with something? They broke the tag, unzipped the pillow, took the insert out, and then stole the covering. Now, here's the funny part for anybody listening. I think we all know that it's the insert, especially when you get to a larger custom pillow size. That is what is so expensive. So ironically, they left behind the most valuable piece about pilling, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, we've done pop-ups where I've wanted to have certain displays and I've marked things, for display only, not for resale. And so, of course, we've had shoppers that honor that by just simply taking it. We're not going to sell it. And, there's nothing you can do about it. I guess it's nice to know that they want or need. And I know what I always hope is that if someone's taking something, it's because they really need it. Because there are a lot of folks who do in this economy really need things that maybe they can't afford.
I always think about the people in retail because we lived in Manhattan Beach and I was growing up a manager in every store from Wet Seal to whatever. And even up till now, it tends to be the people that have the most money, the kids. For one of the stores, I forget where I was last week, but they're guaranteed it was somebody's wife who drove here in a Mercedes, whose husband's an attorney, is who stole it. I'm it's a weird thing, and it's so sad because it's retailers have to deal with that, and it's a cost. I mean, for your case, it comes right out of DAPs, somebody that needs that.
Yeah.
Or for retailers, it comes right out of the bottom line that is now something that is unable to be able to make a profit on, which is so hard. But I always wonder, because there's the laws of what you can and can't do, and say, you can't touch somebody and say, excuse me, what's in your bag, you can't follow them. So I always wonder what big stores do, because it's one of those things. I came out of big anthropology and Z Gallery, and we had loss prevention training. And so you kind of understood what you can do. Yeah. But I think a lot of retailers don't have that. So I always like to ask that question.
Yeah. Again, for us, it comes back to our volunteers, because they really take personal pride in the stores. So I would hate to be the person sticking something in my bag if a volunteer sees you, because
I love
that's their store, and they will talk to you. So
it really take that, what you truly want from an employee, of that ownership. Sorry, Matilda, it's dinner time, so she's.
Yeah, no, they take great ownership in it. And I think that prevents a lot. Our most frequent shoppers, they're not taking anything because they know the volunteers, they know everyone in the store. They don't want that reputation.
No.
So the folks who might be taking things, those are strangers to our store, and I don't know what their story is, but yeah, it's a strange thing to take money from a thrift store. So
I have to ask, what's the best thing you saw in your stores that came in as a donation? Because we talked about this, where you said, why would you donate this? This is a great piece of art.
We have had incredible things donated. We just had a first edition of Truman Capone's In Cold Blood hardcover, autographed, donated. I thought that was an incredible thing to donate. We have had original Moreau paintings donated. We have had we had a beautiful curio cabinet donated by I don't know if it was by Cher, but it was owned by Cher.
Wow.
We have wonderful, Bob Mackey donates fashion to our stores, which we're so appreciative of. When Suzanne Summers was alive, she donated a lot of pieces from her closet, a lot of couture, a lot of beautiful things that she wore to awards shows and things of that nature. So we get a lot of really gorgeous things donated. Things that I love is when we get something like, I just saw an original Edith Head sketch, a costume sketch from a film she was working on. Those things are really special because that they're very, very rare, and they're not you can't make an Edith Head sketch, right? You can't find one. So when we get something in like that as a story, especially if it's a Hollywood story, I always think it's fascinating. And we get a lot of it. Kay Ballard passed away, and her estate donated her things. And one of the things that they donated was her address book, which of course we did not resell because that's very personal. If things get donated like a family heirloom like that, we don't sell them. But I did take a peek at it, and it had Gore Vidal's home address and phone number.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
So, those kind of things, I think things where you're like, wow, Like that's really incredible to be holding, holding something that a Hollywood star would thumb through and call their friend Gore Vidal, right?
It's wild. How do you, so when it comes to the items coming in, there's obviously the things that, are not brand names or they're not couture. But when those pieces do come in, how do you price? Like, how do you price the Truman Capote's book? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. So what our volunteers do, our volunteers are like our shoppers. They use Google Lens to look things up if they're not sure what it is. And they do some online research. What we tend to do is, let's say something has a value of $100, right? What we try to do is price it at a third of that. So if it's collectible, we'll price it higher than a typical book, but we'll price it lower than maybe what it's being sold online or at another store. Because affordability is a key component to the Revival's vibe and brand. People do expect to save and find treasure for pennies on the dollar. Like that is an expectation of our shoppers. So yes, we are fundraising for DAP Health, but we want to raise as much money as we can. So we'll price that slightly higher and again, lower than market value.
How do you call something like that out that's so special? I can't imagine just like into the bookcase.
No, those would go into a glass case.
Okay.
Priced accordingly. And then somebody would come over and help a guest, if they wanted to look at it, then somebody would come in and open it up and let them touch it and look at it and validate
the pieces, are those pulled out on tea stands and whatnot, or how?
Yeah, we've done some nice pop-up shops. When Suzanne Summers made a donation, we did that. For Bob Mackey, we do a special we'll do a special section or a special pop-up store. There was a retailer locally named Will Stiles who has beautiful, beautiful fashion, and they don't like to do clearance sales of their fashion. They don't like to, that's just not their brand. And so we very often have gotten their last season's collection. They'll just donate it in total to us. And it's enough pieces for us to do a pop-up shop within our store. And in that case, we'll have a special event, like a special shopping event. And again, the community will line up and, just flood into our stores and have fun and connect and, have that thrill of looking and saving and getting things that maybe they couldn't afford uptown Palm Springs a year ago, but now they can have it.
I'm fascinated. I want to keep talking to you, and I know we're almost at an hour. Please tell everybody about how they can get involved, and we'll make sure we also list show notes.
Yeah. So, I would say the best way to get involved is just go to our website, which is revivalsstores.com. That's 2 S's in the middle. And, join our Rev Club. Rev Club is our once a week email, and it stands for Revival's Extreme Values. And we don't bug people, but we do on Thursdays at 8:30 in the morning, promptly. You'll get an email from Revivals. It'll include sneak peeks if we've got an event coming up, what the weekend sales are so that you can plan accordingly if that's a category that you want to shop and save. It will have impact stories of where is the money going and how is it helping the community. That's the best way to get involved, is just connect with us via email. And then, what we like to say is whether you choose to volunteer, shop, or donate, you're helping fund access to healthcare. And so, do one of those three things. If you have the time and talent and you'd like to volunteer, please do. The form is on our website. If you want to shop and you don't know where we're located, we've got little widget buttons for locations where you can find yourself at a Revival store. And, again, if you're cleaning out your home and you want to put those things to good use, please drop them off at one of our stores or fill out a form on our website and we will have a truck come and pick it up. Our trucks are so fun. The graphics will make your neighbors happy to see, pull up, and the friendly people in the trucks will load it up, take it back to Revivals and take what you have pre-loved so that somebody else can re-love it.
I love that saying. I don't want to go away from this interview without asking about how some of the changes are affecting DAP with the under-marginalized people, without, obviously creating it be political, but I'm assuming that it is affecting you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an easy question to answer. So I think it's important for folks to know that, it took decades to build the federal safety nets that are currently in place. Things like Medicaid, which really helps more women and children than anyone else. But it really connects people who are not lucky enough to have a well-paying job. It helps get them connected to healthcare. That's how their care gets paid for. It's a large percentage of the population. And if you're not sure who that is, just ask your friends on Facebook to DM you if they get Medicaid, and you're going to be surprised. All of these federal programs, what they're called, federal programs, what they really are is they are a network of safety nets that catch people when they're falling so they don't hit the ground. And how that affects us is 83% of our patient population is on some form of Medicaid, right? So that means 83% of the 88,000 people we serve, that's 62% are women and children. If that funding is gone, their care is impacted. I always tell people, just imagine all of the preventative health care you enjoyed that your parents took you to because they loved you and they wanted you to get the care you needed so that you didn't get sick, so that you could grow into being a healthy and thriving adult. Now close your eyes and imagine being a parent who's not able to give their child that care. And what would that feel like? How it impacts us is that we see and we know the people that are going to be impacted with these cuts when they happen. And we know the challenges they face. And we know that access to healthcare, it's a revolutionary act in that when you connect someone to care, you change their health. When you change their health, you change their life. When you change their life and you meet them where they are, you restore their dignity. And that's a really powerful thing to be able to do for another human being. And it's something that I think if folks really think about it on both sides of the aisle, regardless of political affiliation, I kind of think it's a value that we all share, and something that's worth making sure your elected officials know if that's something you care about, that you reach out and give them a call or send them a letter, because that's how a democracy works. It's by and for the people. And if this is something that your listeners care about, stay informed and stay connected to your elected officials, and be sure to let them know what your expectation is in terms of funding that matters to you. And let them know the kind of world that you would envision them helping co-create with your tax dollars, because that's really what elected officials do. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on. It's not really political, because our patients are people first. And that's not politics. That's humanity.
Yep. Thank you for your time with that. I really appreciate it. I was like sitting on the fence. Do I bring it up? But it is something that's happening, and you are dealing with the people who are directly affected by it. And I am so grateful for what Revivals is doing for DAP and the profits going back to their healthcare, because it's an incredible thing. And you could tell the pride that you take in it, and everybody that works for the organization takes in it.
It's, the work never ends. I think the people we serve keeps changing, but the work will never end. There's always going to be a new community that's underserved, or a new community that is marginalized, who will benefit from, compassionate and comprehensive care. And that could look like the care of a volunteer, remembering their name and connecting them in a way where they don't feel isolated. And that could be a doctor, giving them medication that they need to control their diabetes. You just don't know what someone's story is. But I kind of think that's the magic of retail, honestly. Like, yes, of course, retail is consumerism and we all love to shop. But I really think retail at its best is about bumping into someone or something that you don't expect, and it making your life better.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's very social. It's very, it's life change. I mean, I think that's the reason why so many of us love this industry so much.
Yep, absolutely.
Stephen, thank you so much for your time. I really,
it's fun talking with you.
I love hearing all about this, and I am certainly going to be coming to visit you.
Oh, please. I'll take you behind the scenes into the warehouse, the magic space where all
Oh my God, I would love that.
sort everything.
I would love that.